Here is a media advisory. The virtual press conference on global health issue issued on Wednesday, 9th November 2022 at 3 p.m. The news reads as follows. It's a media advisory. Virtual press conference on global health. The media advisory reads as follows. The virtual press conference on global health issue. It was broadcasted when? On Wednesday, 9th November 2022 at 3 p.m. The subject is global health issue and link were given. You can join. This is the code. This need to be promoted. You can join it by phone also. This is the link for Zoom application. The webinar ID is given like this one. Numeric passwords for phone access is this one. You need to ensure your name and media outlets, name outlets. Note that only questions from media, one per journalist are allowed. When you sign in, you will automatically put in the meeting room. But you have to patiently observe that how long it will take because the experts from different regions of the globe would speak. So your continuation decides how sincerely you could observe. Like WHO reserves the right to remove any participants whose behavior causes any disruption. The event is also broadcasted on World Health Organization social media channels and you can follow it there. Now to ask a question, please click raise hands and this will enter you into the queue for questions. It can be found under the tab participants. Then please make sure you have a microphone connected or active on your computer. Do not ask questions via the chat as we cannot guarantee that we can incorporate them into the question sessions. For translation during the press conference, choices are under interpretations or language interpretation depending on which versions of Zoom you use. Due to the volume of questions, we are no longer able to take them from phone callers and interpretations is not available by telephone. Their contacts are given. Thank you. Then this process continues how we shares our understanding. It is a media advisory on global health issue that the event will be organized on so and so details. There are other relevant informations. If you will subscribe this one like Q, position on talk with Russia, Yellen in India, global climate finance needs. CFR deliverables rates as follows. Council, Foreign Relations, Delhi News Brief, November 8, 2022. The top of agenda were like after US urging Zelensky lays out conditions for talk with Russia. Ukraine President Vladimir Zelensky said that he is open to talk with Russia that focus on Ukraine's territorial integrity, compassion for material losses, and punishment of war crimes. A senior advisor to Zelensky tweeted that Ukraine is ready for talks with a future Russian leader, Reuters. But now, with President Vladimir Putin, the statements came after Washington privately urged Kyiv to signal it is open to negotiation. In recent months, US National Security Advisor Jack Sullivan spoke with Putin's top aides in an effort to reduce hostilities in the war, while the United States continued to deliver arms to Kyiv ahead of the US midterm election today. Some Republican lawmakers and congressional candidates have said they would aim to reduce military aid. Therefore, for Ukraine. Analysis. The risk of a wider war between the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, and Russia is rising by the day, as is the risk of the economic blowback from a prolonged war could undermine Western democracy. It is time for the United States and its allies to get directly involved in shaping Ukraine's strategic objectives, managing the conflicts, and seeking a diplomatic endgame. CFR's Charles A. Kupchan writes for the New York Times. The Russian power and influence may be diminished, but that does not mean Russia will become dramatically less threatening. Instead, some aspects of the threats are likely to worsen. The Center for a New American Secretaries Andrea Kendall Taylor and Michelle Kaufman write in Foreign Affairs. Another news about Pacific Rim reads as follows: China becomes Russia's top trading partner amid Western sanctions from Moscow. Between June and August, Russia's trade with the European Union dropped 43% compared to the same period last year, and its trade with China increased 23%, according to the Germany based Q Instruments for the World Economy. North Korea, a defense ministry official, refuted US allegations. You can read the article on Bloomberg that North Korea is providing arms for Russia to use in Ukraine. Now, with reference to the South and Central Asia, US Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen visits India. Yellen and Indian officials are expected to discuss how to deepen US India trade ties, Reuters. India has now joined trade negotiations under Joe Biden administration's Indo-Pacific Economic Framework (IPEF). For India, Indigo, one of India's largest airlines, said it grounded 30 planes yesterday, Economic Times, due to the supply chain disruptions. Then Middle East and North Africa. Iranian security forces cracked down on protests in border province. At least 17 people have been killed since Friday, Bloomberg, as Iran's security forces quashed anti-government protests in provinces with large ethnic minority populations, right groups, it was said. As the US or Iraq, a US aid worker was shot dead by unknown assailants in Baghdad yesterday. Iraqi police officials said Prime Minister Mohammad Shia al-Sudani said security agencies will investigate the killing. Then from Sub-Sahara Africa, Uganda to close schools nationwide after 8 children die of Ebola. Uganda will shut schools, as reported by AFP 2 weeks before the scheduled end of term. Education Minister and First Lady Janet Museveni said. CFR examines how climate change is affecting the transmission of Ebola and other zoonotic diseases. Democratic Republic of Congo. The Democratic Republic of Congo began training over 3,000 army recruits as it steps up its battle with the March 23 November movement rebel group. A news from Europe reads as follows: France, United Kingdom in talks on English Channel migrant crossings. The Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Rishi Sunak, said the countries are in the final stages, as broadcasted on BBC, of talks on a deal to address migrants illegally crossing the English Channel. Then from Americans, Italian company to resume transporting Venezuelan oil. The Italian oil firm Eni will resume shipping, as reported at Reuters. Venezuelan oil exports after a 4-month pause. In June, the United States modified sanctions on Venezuela to allow it to resume exports with Eni. This, in brief, looks at the US sanction on Venezuela. You can click the link to follow the same. Then from Colombia, Venezuela, commercial flights resumed at Marco Press between the countries for the first time since they were paused in March 2020 due to the COVID-19 concerns. The news from United States reads as follows: Russian businessman says Moscow is faring in US elections. In a statement, Putin's ally Eugeny Prigozhin said, "We have interfered, we do interfere, and we will interfere in US elections, including today's midterms." In 2018, the United States indicated Prigozhin in a case involving a troll farm that attempted to disrupt the 2016 US elections. For the Renewing American Initiative, panelists discuss what the midterm could pretend for politics and polarization in the United States. Then the news from COP27 reads as follows. The report: developing countries needs $1 trillion per year in external climate finance. A report by the United Nations independent high-level expert groups on climate finance said that by 2030, emerging markets and developing countries other than China will collectively need $1 trillion, as reported in Reuters, in external climatic financing per year. 26 countries have so far signed on climate change news to a partnership launched yesterday to strengthen efforts to conserve forests. At last year's climate conference, 155 nations said they would boost their efforts to prevent forest losses. You can follow this organization, the Council on Foreign Relations, 58 East 68th Street, New York, 10065. Then the other steps like 1777 F Street, New York, Washington DC, 20006. The others informations are as follows. Like if we can learn about the expressed information about the functioning of the organizations, it reads as follows. Like United Nations News, Global Perspective for Human Stories, as it is published on 7th November. Like it's a humanitarian call for greater support to prevent famine in Horn of Africa. Greater global solidarity is needed to address the rapidly unfolding humanitarian catastrophe in the Horn of Africa, where millions are going hungry due to the 2 years of unprecedented droughts, UN agencies and partners said in a statement on Monday. So it's a reference for an event. So we must learn the relevant topics in brief. Our awareness, our understanding could help us to explore and express our concerns about these things. With reference to the humanitarian aid, like mass displacements in eastern DR Congo threatens young lives, the lives of thousands of children in overcrowded unsanitary camps for internally displaced people in Eastern Democratic Republic of the Congo are seriously at risk, the UN Children's Fund UNICEF warned on Monday. On peace and security, like racism and sexism, poverty should be illegal, human rights expert says. Although the global cost of living crisis will be an obstacle to eradicating poverty by 2030, countries can still make significant progress towards this sustainable development goal. UN appointed human rights experts Olivier de Schutter has said. And with reference to human rights, COP27 $3.1 billion plan to achieve early warning system for all by 2027. $3.1 billion plan to achieve early warning system for all by 2027. with climate related disasters displacing more people than conflict. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres on Monday unveiled the details of his plan to ensure everyone on the planet is protected by early warning system within the next 5 years. And with reference to human rights, gaps, inconsistencies, and discrepancies continue our serious chemical weapon stance, Security Council hears. The top United Nations disarmament official told the Security Council on Monday that gaps, inconsistencies, and discrepancies identified in Syria's declaration over its use of chemical weapons in accordance with the Chemical Weapons Convention cannot be considered accurate and complete. Then, with reference to peace and security, we have to think together for implementation. Like cooperate or Paris at COP27 United Nations Chief calls for climate solidarity pact, urges tax on oil companies to finance loss and damage. At the opening of the 2 days climate implementation summit at COP27 in Sharm el Sheikh, Egypt, Antonio Guterres called for a historic pact between developed and developing countries to combine capacities and pivot the world towards reducing carbon emissions, transforming energy system and avoiding a climate catastrophe. Then with reference to climate and environment, new milestone in battle against illegal unregulated fishing. Global action to fight illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing has intensified, the flood and agricultural organizations said on Monday, noting that 100 states have now signed on to an international agreement battling the scours. Then, with reference to climate and environment, other news are being broadcasted on a regular basis. If we will follow, it could help us to explore the things. Now, we will understand about the significance of corporate or Paris of COP27 Global Solidarity Pact, like the climate implementation summit gets underway. Wherever you are, good evening from Sharm el Sheikh, Egypt. It is the first day of the COP27 World Leaders Summits, or the Climate Implementation Summits as it's been dubbed by the conference's Egyptian presidency, making a strong statement about the need for negotiators to focus more on actions than words. The United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres, while leaders including Barbados Prime Minister Mia Mottley, three women experts, an economist, an academic, and a youth activist, and a former US Vice President Al Gore took the stage during the opening segment of the event. The themes: renewable energy, climate justice, solidarity, and loss and damage. The mantra: implementation. The end goal: there is still a path to curb global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius, but leaders must cooperate, update, and implement their climate plans, taking into account that the most vulnerable and those barely contributing to global emissions are facing the worst consequences of climate change. The power of the purse is key to what has been characterized as a battle for survival. You can find all the highlights of today's high level opening, including the Secretary General's state's strong call for a climate solidarity pact, in our featured story just below. More than 40 leaders today made their national statements, and over 50 will be present tomorrow during the second day of the summit. Many of these speakers described with great concerns the suffering that their countries are facing due to the extreme weather events, including floods, droughts, hurricanes, and sea level rise. The impact of these disasters include, but are not limited to, food and water shortage, mass human displacement, and death. Some leaders, such as French President Emmanuel Macron, also spoke of the war in Ukraine, urging people and promising not to deviate from their climate goals because of energy crisis. Meanwhile, representatives from some of the countries hit the hardest by climate change, including Pakistan, which suffered unprecedented floods that devastated the country this past summer, called for climate justice. Then Secretary General Guterres, alongside Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, said that the international community has a duty to provide support. What goes on in Pakistan will not stay in Pakistan. He warned, describing his recent visit to the nation as a moment which marked him deeply. Regarding new initiatives, two were launched today by the United Nations, one to drive finance to early warning system and another to promote drought resilience. In today's newsletter, you will find more about these efforts as well as our daily COP27 podcast and more. This is the feature story. Like at COP27, United Nations Chief calls for Climate Solidarity Pact, urges tax on oil companies to finance loss and damage. At the opening of the two-day Climate Implementation Summit at COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, Antonio Guterres called for a historic pact between developed and developing countries to combine capacities and pivot the world towards reducing carbon emissions, transforming energy system and avoidance of climate catastrophe. Humanity has a choice: cooperate or perish. It is either a climate solidarity pact or a collective societal pact. The United Nations Secretary General told our 100 world leaders reunited for the first official plenary of the United Nations Climate Change Conference today. You can read this article in full. Further, you can carry on. Like the lead is on podcast at COP27. COP27, the United Nations Climate Conference, has begun in the Red Sea resort of Sharm el Sheikh, Egypt. Connor Lennon and Laura Quinans are at the high stakes event. For daily episode of the Ladies On, explaining the main issue of the day and talking to some of the experts, activists, and leaders. Monday saw the Secretary General gave a forthright speech at the opening session, and it became clear that the vexed issue of loss and damage, how to compensate developing countries for the damage caused by the climate crisis, is likely to dominate discussion over the next 2 weeks. COP27 podcast, Lost or Damaged. The UN News editor speaks about the correspondence as COP27 begins a new era to do things differently. The United Nations Climate Change Conference in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt should shift the world towards implementation of previously agreed plans to tackle humanity's greatest challenge. Simon Styling, the new Executive Secretary of UNFCCC, said at the opening of COP27. Then about Sun, new UN weather report, a chronicle of chaos, UN chief said. National pledges to reduce harmful emissions offers little hope of avoiding climate disaster. United Nations climate experts said in an urgent appeal for a radical transformation of the energy sector before it's too late. The next one about climate change much deadlier than cancer in some places, UNDP data shows. The impact of climate change on health if carbon emission remains high could be up to twice as deadly as cancer in some parts of the world. According to new data released by the United Nations Development Programme, the new milestones in battle against illegal, unregulated fishing, global action to fight illegal, unreported, and unregulated IUU fishing has intensified, the Flood and Agriculture Organization said, noting that 100 states have now signed onto an international agreement battling the scours. We encourage you to forward and share the contents. And to sign up if you haven't. Quote of the day as follows by Antonio Guterres, United Nations Secretary General. Those that give up are sure to lose. So let's fight together and let's win. COP27, 7 November 2022. From United Nations Africa, renewal at COP27. Young Africans at COP27 says they want action, not words. You have to read the story. The next featured video, adapting to the changing environment. Adopting the changing environment. You can browse the video link. UNICEF Youth reported Reba essay on the importance of sustainable agriculture and about social media movements. A call to address loss and damage as the message was broadcasted on Twitter. Like the impact of climate change are here now, and the loss and damage they cause can no longer be ignored. COP27 must agree on a clear, time-bound roadmap reflective to the scale and urgency of the challenges. It's a moral imperative and a question of solidarity and climate justice. Then initiatives at COP27. $3.1 billion plan to achieve early warning system for all by 2027. With climate-related disasters displacing more people than conflicts, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres on Monday unveiled the details of his plan to ensure everyone on the planet is protected by early warning system within the next 5 years. Thank you. Like a new International Drought Resilience Alliance at the initiative of the President of Senegal, Macky Sall, and Spain, Pedro Sánchez, leaders from over 25 countries and 20 organizations today launched the International Drought Resilience Alliance to accelerate action and help countries to be better prepared for future droughts. So we need to bring together help. Then from United Nations Climate Change Mitigation, UNFCCC. COP27 must answer call for accelerated action and climate justice. The demands of the most impacted, particularly African, indigenous, youth and women voices, must be centered throughout these next 2 weeks at COP27 and beyond, writes Caricia Patron, Maikuri Program Coordinator, Drought on Lift Project Drawn. Then the carbon credits and the energy transition, an investor perspective. What does the current carbon market booms mean to energy startups in Africa? And how should ventures capital funds and impact investors evaluate this business? Dr. Amar Imandar, Managing Director of Kwai Safi Ventures Fund explains. Then from COP calendar, 7 to 8 November, World Leader Summit, 9 November, Finance Day, 10 November, Science and Youth Day, 11 November, Decarbonization Day, 12 November, Adopting an Agriculture Day, 14th November, Gender Day, 15th November, Water Day, 16th November, Energy and Civil Society Day, the photo of the day. Family photo of the world leaders at COP27 2027. You can click to expand. The next one is about UN ORG and climate change. Do your part for climate action. Act now. Act now. Act now. People everywhere are taking steps to be part of the solutions to the climate crisis. More than 9 million actions have been logged through the Act Now campaign. Read more. So, as initiatives at COP27, 3.1 billion plan to achieve early warning system for all by 2027. I have already read it. It will continue. You can follow the organization on Twitter, on Facebook, and on other platforms. Greetings to all of you. Then, about the other relevant news, if you will understand, it will bring solution to your queries so that you could continue